looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Caribbean. Now, first, what I want us to really understand when we look at the Caribbean context is that it's important to understand and appreciate that nothing good came from colonialism, and nothing good can ever come from neocolonialism. There's simply no excuse or no justification for such actions. And I think the world will forever be healing from those sorts of exploitative behaviors. But now, with that being said, I want us to also understand that we as people are a product of those who have gone before us, just as we are going to be the ones who shape the future in which the younger generations will inherit. And when we look at the Caribbean and our history, we see that despite many events that forced us together, we have developed into a region where diversity, equity, and inclusion gives us, in some instances, and can give us significant power to shape our destiny. So I'd like us to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Caribbean. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. No, we can't.
Sorry, okay. Better. Beautiful. We're seeing screen 2. We're seeing diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. So diversity. Now, diversity is a product of our past in the Caribbean, and it's a basic starting point across the region. We have many differences within the Caribbean setting, and the region is arguably one of the most diverse in the world. Now, as a byproduct of that diversity is inclusion. That is a bit better than most other places when you really look at the Caribbean. Now, we are definitely not where we should be, and there's a whole lot more that we need to be doing to ensure that all people feel that sense of belonging. But we have a diverse spectrum of people in the region and within the territories that have power, that have a voice, and that have decision-making authority. And that spectrum is widening. Now, where we really need to look at and work a lot harder on is equity. Now, that is ensuring that the systems, the processes, and the programs that we have are impartial, are fair, and provide that equitable possible outcomes for every individual involved in the system. So what is the strategic value add of including youth in this evolving concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion? At the top of the list, they are the future. And we have the ability now to really help build that future that we need, not only by investing in youth, but by listening and including youth voices, their ideas, their beliefs, and their values in today's decision making. Now, changes driven by youth are going to impact the bottom line. They're just not going to be our leaders of the future, but they're going to be the clients and the customers as well. And really ensuring that that youth inclusion will help organizations, will help societies to be at the front of those changes that will come. Now, when we look at this younger generation, we see that they truly believe in equality and they will not stay quiet about it. Now, equality is the starting point to equity, and youth, especially the current generation in secondary schools, are not tolerating anything that infringes upon basic human rights and equality. Now, they are setting the examples that the rest of us should really look at, learn from, and learn and include in our ways of operating, like Audrey said Scotiabank is doing. I mean, another important point is that they understand climate change. They know that it is real, and that they are the ones who are going to be our saviors in this climate change adaptation if we can listen to them quickly enough. We are in a pandemic, and this younger generation is really going to be more resilient than any other generation. I mean, just look at what we're going through, and they're moving through all of these challenges that we are all facing with arguably less support and less resources than adults to do so. They understand the importance of mental health and open discussions. Now, these are things that the older generations are really now getting around to, but these are things that the younger generations have as part of their life. And finally, they care. The youth right now really care because they are not at the point where society has squeezed that out of them and tried to fit them into this mold. And we have an opportunity in front of us to make sure that that doesn't happen by what we do today. So how do we really leverage youth as we work together towards this greater diversity, equity, and inclusion today? I mean, it's really simple. There are a lot of points that I cannot go into. The starting point is definitely to invest in youth. And I know that is something that is consistently said, but it still needs to be repeated, because if we invest now in the development of youth, then we're investing in the future that we need. We need to look at the fundamentals of safety, of safeguarding and protection. Now, these things are critical, not just for the issues that we are facing today, but for us to really move towards a more peaceful, a just, and a safe society in the future. Education needs to help youth to adapt to changes, to think critically, remain curious, and to really learn those fundamental skills that are needed to succeed in this rapidly changing and technology-driven world. Mentorship is so important. I mean, there are formal programs like what Big Brothers Big Sisters offers, those structured, supported ways of building systems that allow these experiences, learnings, and guidance for dealing with life issues and challenges to transcend generations. There are other informal ways in which mentorship can be brought back into Caribbean society. It was there. It's how we grew. It's how we learned. It's how we developed. And we need to bring that back into how we operate. Youth inclusion. Now, this is really important. From discussions around citizenship and partnership planning, policies, legislation, institutional arrangements, these really need to include the youth perspective because it is the future. And on top of that needs to be that youth empowerment, creating those spaces and the platforms where youth get a chance to say, to share, and to do what is needed to build upon the future we need, supported by those previous steps, those steps of education, mentorship, and inclusion. And I mean, there's a whole lot more that I could really go into, but I want to close here, and I want to close with this slide, which shows the team at the Heroes Foundation. Now, it's our board of directors, our program delivery team, and what we've recently implemented called our Generation to Generation Council. Now, they're our youth advisory team that is included in all of our planning and all of our decision-making processes at Heroes. The diversity is clear, and we continue to work towards the inclusion as best as we can. We rolled out a bunch of new digital activities over the last year. We transitioned all of our programs to digital delivery by working together with this diverse team. And when we look at going forward and we look at working towards equity in the Caribbean region, then organizations like us that are focused on youth, we're certainly going to need help from all stakeholders to ensure that we can continue to get closer to that future that looks at diversity, equity, and inclusion that we really need in the Caribbean. And I'll end there